Good day, my friends. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in the waiting room of life, holding on to promises that seem delayed? You've prayed, fasted, and stayed faithful, but nothing seems to be happening. I want you to know that God's silence is not his absence, and his delays are not his denials. Waiting is hard. It tests your faith, your patience, and sometimes your resolve. But I want to remind you today that every season of waiting has a purpose, and every promise has a process. The question is not whether God will fulfill his promises. The question is, are you ready to recognize the signs that your breakthrough is near? Let me walk you through 7 clear signs that you're closer to your success than you realize. Your waiting is not in vain. Your season of success is almost here. Sign 1, increased opposition. When you find yourself facing increased opposition, it's natural to question everything. You might wonder, why now? Why me? Why, when I've been trying to stay faithful, does it seem like everything is falling apart? But let me tell you something, opposition is often the clearest indicator that you are on the verge of something significant. It's not a sign of failure, it's confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. When you understand the spiritual dynamics behind opposition, you'll begin to see it not as a setback, but as a stepping stone. Opposition isn't just random resistance, it's a calculated response. The enemy doesn't waste time attacking what isn't a threat. If you're under pressure, if the challenges seem to be multiplying, if the weight feels unbearable, it's because the enemy knows you are on the brink of breakthrough. He recognizes the potential in you, even when you can't see it yourself. In fact, the closer you are to your purpose, the more intense the opposition becomes. This is a pattern that plays out time and time again in Scripture and in life. Before every major victory, there is a battle. Before every triumph, there is a trial. I think about this. When Moses was born, Pharaoh ordered the killing of every Hebrew baby boy. Why? Because the enemy recognized that Moses was a deliverer in the making. When Jesus was born, Herod issued a decree to kill all male children under the age of 2. Why? Because the enemy feared the arrival of the Messiah. The pattern is clear: the greater the destiny, the fiercer the opposition. So if you're facing relentless challenges, it's because what you carry is significant. The opposition is not a reflection of your inadequacy, it's a testament to your potential. Opposition comes in many forms. Sometimes it's external people turning against you, relationships breaking down, unexpected financial struggles, or health issues. Other times it's internal self-doubt, fear, anxiety, or a sense of unworthiness. Regardless of the form it takes, opposition is designed to do one thing: to stop you in your tracks. The enemy wants you to question your calling, to doubt God's promises, to give up before you see the fulfillment. But here's the truth: opposition only has power if you allow it to. One of the reasons opposition feels so overwhelming is because it often hits us in our most vulnerable places. The enemy doesn't play fair. He knows where we're weakest, and that's where he strikes. If you've been struggling with insecurity, he'll amplify those doubts. If you've been battling loneliness, he'll make you feel isolated. If you've been working on your finances, he'll send unexpected expenses. But what the enemy doesn't realize is that the very areas he targets are the areas God is strengthening. Every challenge is an opportunity for growth. Every attack is an opportunity for God to demonstrate his power. Consider the story of David. Before he became king, he faced opposition at every turn. He was overlooked by his own family, hunted by King Saul, and faced the giant Goliath. But what did David do? He didn't run from the opposition. He confronted it head on. He understood that opposition was not the end of the story, but a crucial part of the process. Every battle David faced prepared him for the throne. The same is true for you. The battles you're facing right now are preparing you for the blessings ahead. When you're in the midst of opposition, it's easy to focus on the problem and lose sight of the promise. The enemy wants you to believe that the opposition is permanent, that it's stronger than you, and that you're alone in the fight. But nothing could be further from the truth. Opposition is temporary. It's a momentary obstacle, not an eternal roadblock. And you are never alone. God has promised to fight for you. He has promised to go before you, to stand beside you, and to be your rear guard. The opposition may be strong, but God is stronger. One of the greatest strategies for overcoming opposition is to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this opposition trying to teach me? Instead of focusing on the pain, focus on the purpose. Every trial has a lesson. Every challenge has a blessing hidden within it. When you begin to see opposition as an opportunity for growth, you strip it of its power. What was meant to harm you becomes a tool for your development. It's also important to remember that opposition is not a sign of God's absence. It's often a sign of his presence. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fiery furnace, it wasn't because God had abandoned them. It was because they refused to compromise their faith. And in the midst of the fire, God showed up. The same is true for you. The fire you're walking through right now is not a punishment, it's a platform. It's the place where God's power will be revealed. Don't let the heat intimidate you. The fire is refining you, not destroying you. Another thing to consider is that opposition often comes right before a major breakthrough. It's like the darkest hour before the dawn. The enemy knows that if he can discourage you now, he can stop you from stepping into your destiny. But if you can endure, if you can keep going despite the challenges, you'll see the light breaking through. The breakthrough is closer than you think. Don't let temporary opposition cause you to forfeit eternal blessings. Prayer is one of the most powerful weapons against opposition. When you feel overwhelmed, when the weight feels too heavy, when the battle seems unwinnable, go to God in prayer. Pour out your heart to him. He hears you. He sees you. And he will strengthen you. Prayer doesn't always change the situation, but it changes you. It gives you the clarity, the courage, and the strength to keep moving forward. Faith is another key to overcoming opposition. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to trust God in the face of fear. It's the belief that God is who he says he is and that he will do what he has promised. When you stand in faith, you're not just standing against the opposition, you're standing on the promises of God. And his promises are unshakable. Finally, remember that opposition is a sign of progress. If you weren't moving forward, the enemy wouldn't bother you. The fact that you're facing resistance means you're heading in the right direction. So keep going. Don't give up. Don't back down. The opposition may be fierce, but it cannot stop you unless you let it. You were created for this moment. You were equipped for this battle. And with God on your side, you will overcome. Sign 2, divine discontentment. Divine discontentment is a feeling that can shake you to your core. It's a restlessness, a stirring deep within your spirit that tells you where you are is no longer where you're meant to be. It's not frustration with your circumstances, but a holy discomfort planted by God himself. It's a sign that he is calling you higher, preparing you for something greater, and nudging you out of the comfort zone that you've grown accustomed to. It's the tension between your current reality and your God-given destiny. When divine discontentment takes hold, it can feel unsettling. You may find yourself questioning why you no longer feel satisfied with things that once brought you joy. You may feel as though the routines that used to bring comfort now feel constricting, or as though the successes you once celebrated now seem hollow. This isn't because there's something wrong with you, it's because there's something more ahead of you. God is shifting your focus from where you are to where he wants you to be. Divine discontentment often begins with a small whisper, a subtle sense that there's more to life than what you're currently experiencing. Over time, that whisper grows louder. It may come as an unshakable thought, an unrelenting dream, or a persistent desire to break free from the ordinary. It's not born of greed or dissatisfaction with God's provision. It's born of purpose. God uses this feeling to draw your attention to the areas of your life that he wants to transform. It's a divine invitation to step into a new season, to embrace the next level of your calling. One of the challenges of divine discontentment is that it can feel like you're in limbo, stuck between where you've been and where you're going. This in-between space can be uncomfortable. You might feel as though you don't fully belong in your current season anymore, but you also haven't yet stepped into the new one. It's a season of transition, and transitions are rarely easy. They require faith, patience, and a willingness to trust God even when the path ahead isn't clear. In this season, it's easy to misinterpret divine discontentment as failure or inadequacy. You might think, why can't I just be content with what I have? Why do I feel this way when everything seems fine? But divine discontentment isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of failure. It's a sign of growth. It's God's way of saying that you've outgrown your current circumstances. Just as a plant outgrows its pot and needs to be transplanted to thrive, you too need to be moved to a new environment to continue growing. This feeling of discontentment isn't meant to frustrate you. It's meant to propel you forward. It's a catalyst for change, a motivator that pushes you to seek God more deeply and to pursue his plans with greater determination. It's a reminder that you were created for more than a life of mediocrity. You were created for impact, for purpose, and for greatness in his kingdom. Divine discontentment keeps you from settling for less than God's best. God often uses this discontentment to prepare you for what's next. He stirs your heart so that you begin to let go of the things that no longer serve your purpose. This might mean releasing old habits, stepping away from certain relationships, or leaving behind a job or position that no longer aligns with where God is leading you. It's not always easy to let go, especially when what you're leaving behind feels safe and familiar. But divine discontentment reminds you that growth requires change, and change often requires sacrifice. In this process, it's important to seek God's guidance. Divine discontentment is not a license to act impulsively or to abandon your responsibilities in search of something new. It's a call to draw closer to God, to seek his wisdom, and to trust his timing. When you bring your feelings of discontentment to him, he will begin to reveal the next steps. He will provide clarity and direction, showing you how to move forward in alignment with his will. Divine discontentment can also be a test of your faith. It challenges you to believe in the promises of God, even when you can't see them yet. It requires you to trust that the discomfort you're feeling has a purpose and that God is working all things together for your good. It's an invitation to step out in faith, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. Just as Abraham left his homeland without knowing where God was leading him, you too may be called to step into the unknown, trusting that God will guide your steps. As you navigate this season, it's important to remember that divine discontentment is not a punishment, it's a gift. It's a sign that God has not forgotten you, that he has more in store for you, and that he is actively working in your life. It's a reminder that you are a work in progress, constantly being shaped and refined for his glory. The discomfort you feel is not meant to discourage you, it's meant to prepare you. It's a sign that you are on the verge of something new, something greater, something God ordained. Divine discontentment can also be an opportunity to reevaluate your priorities and align them with God's will. It forces you to ask yourself important questions. What am I truly living for? Am I pursuing God's purpose or my own plans? Am I using my gifts and talents for his glory? These questions may be uncomfortable, but they are necessary. They help you refocus on what truly matters and ensure that you are walking in obedience to God's calling. As you lean into this season of divine discontentment, you'll begin to notice subtle shifts. You'll find yourself drawn to new opportunities, new ideas, and new ways of thinking. You'll discover strengths and abilities you didn't know you had. You'll begin to see glimpses of the future God has planned for you. And as you take steps of faith, no matter how small, you'll find that God is faithful to meet you every step of the way. Divine discontentment is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new chapter. It's God's way of awakening your spirit, stretching your faith, and leading you into a deeper relationship with him. It's a reminder that he is always at work in your life, drawing you closer to him and preparing you for the plans he has for you. Though the process may be uncomfortable, the outcome is worth it. Trust the stirring in your spirit, for it is a sign that God is calling you to something greater. Sign 3, unexplainable favor. Unexplainable favor is one of the most profound and awe-inspiring experiences a believer can encounter. It is the tangible evidence of God's hand on your life, working in ways that defy logic, reason, and natural circumstances. It is not something you can earn, manufacture, or explain. It is a gift from God poured out upon you according to his purpose and his timing. When unexplainable favor begins to manifest in your life, it is unmistakable. It opens doors you never knocked on, connects you to opportunities you never sought, and positions you in places you never imagined you'd be. It is a divine advantage that sets you apart and accelerates your journey toward destiny. The beauty of unexplainable favor lies in its supernatural nature. It operates outside the bounds of human effort and understanding. You may find yourself in situations where by all accounts you should not succeed, yet success finds you. People who don't know you or owe you anything may go out of their way to help you. Circumstances that seem stacked against you suddenly shift in your favor. It's as if the universe itself begins to conspire to bring about the plans God has for your life. But make no mistake, this is not chance or coincidence. It is the intentional work of a God who delights in showing himself strong on behalf of his children. When unexplainable favor shows up, it often feels surreal. You might ask yourself, why me? Why now? This is a natural response because favor is inherently humbling. It reminds you that it's not about your qualifications, your connections, or your hard work, although God can use all of those things. Favor is about his grace. It's about his sovereign decision to bless you, not because of what you've done, but because of who he is. Favor is a reflection of God's character, his generosity, and his ability to do exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think. Unexplainable favor doesn't mean that life will always be easy or that challenges will disappear. In fact, favor often comes in the midst of opposition. It shines brightest when the odds are against you, proving that what is happening in your life is not by your might or power, but by the Spirit of God. Think about Joseph in the Bible. Despite being sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned, he experienced unexplainable favor at every turn. In Potiphar's house, he was placed in charge of everything. In prison, he found favor with the warden and was entrusted with leadership responsibilities. And ultimately, he was elevated to a position of power in Pharaoh's palace, where he became a deliverer for his family and his nation. Joseph's story is a testament to the fact that favor is not dictated by circumstances, it transcends them. Unexplainable favor also has a way of silencing your critics and confounding your enemies. There will always be people who question why you've been chosen, why you're experiencing success, or why doors are opening for you. They may try to discredit you, sabotage you, or challenge your qualifications, but favor speaks louder than criticism. It makes a statement that cannot be ignored. This is God's doing. Favor validates your calling and confirms that God is with you. It reminds the world that his plans and purposes cannot be thwarted no matter who or what stands against you. One of the most incredible aspects of unexplainable favor is how it impacts the people around you. Favor is not just for your benefit, it's for God's glory and the advancement of his kingdom. When others see the favor on your life, it becomes a testimony of God's goodness and power. It inspires faith, ignites hope, and points people to him. Favor is contagious. When you walk in it, you create an atmosphere where others can experience it too. Think of Esther, whose favor with King Xerxes not only secured her position as queen, but also saved an entire nation. Her favor was a vehicle for God's purposes, demonstrating that favor is always connected to a higher plan. While favor is unearned, it often aligns with obedience. God looks for those who are faithful, humble, and willing to be used for his glory. This doesn't mean that favor is a reward for good behavior. It's not about earning points with God. Rather, obedience positions you to receive and steward his favor effectively. When you're walking in alignment with his will, you become a vessel through which his favor can flow freely. This is why it's so important to remain sensitive to his leading and to stay committed to his principles. Favor is not about self-promotion or personal gain. It's about fulfilling God's purpose in your life. Unexplainable favor may also require you to step out in faith. When God places favor on your life, it often comes with an opportunity that challenges you to move beyond your comfort zone. Favor is not passive, it requires action. It's like a key that unlocks a door, but you still have to walk through it. You may find yourself facing decisions that feel daunting or situations that seem beyond your capacity. This is where faith comes in. Favor and faith go hand in hand. Favor creates opportunities and faith empowers you to seize them. When you step out in faith, trusting that God has gone before you, you position yourself to experience the fullness of his favor. One of the most profound truths about unexplainable favor is that it's not just for special moments or specific seasons. It's a part of your identity as a child of God. Favor is woven into the fabric of your relationship with him. You are his beloved. He delights in blessing you. This doesn't mean that you'll never face difficulties or that every season will be marked by visible favor, but it does mean that favor is always at work in your life, even when you can't see it. And sometimes favor is subtle, operating behind the scenes to align circumstances and prepare you for what's ahead. Other times it's unmistakable, manifesting in ways that leave you and everyone around you in awe. Favor is not about comparison. It's easy to look at someone else's life and feel envious of the favor they're experiencing. But favor is not a competition. What God has for you is for you. Your journey is unique, and the favor he pours out on your life is perfectly tailored to your purpose. When you focus on what God is doing in your life rather than comparing it to others, you'll find yourself more attuned to his blessings and more grateful for his provision. Living in unexplainable favor requires a heart of gratitude. Favor is a gift, and gratitude is the appropriate response to that gift. When you acknowledge God as the source of your favor, you honor him and create room for even greater blessings. Gratitude keeps your heart humble and your perspective aligned with his. It reminds you that every good and perfect gift comes from above and that your success is not your own doing, but a reflection of his goodness. Unexplainable favor is a reminder of God's sovereignty. It's a testament to the fact that he is in control, that his plans are perfect, and that his timing is impeccable. Favor doesn't always come when you expect it, but it always comes when you need it. It's a demonstration of his faithfulness, a declaration that he is working all things together for your good. When you experience unexplainable favor, you are reminded that nothing is impossible for God and that his purpose for your life will prevail no matter what. Sign 4, spiritual growth in isolation. Spiritual growth in isolation is one of the most profound journeys a person can undertake. In the stillness of solitude, when distractions fade and external influences recede, you are left with an opportunity to confront yourself and meet God in a way that is often unparalleled. It is in these quiet, seemingly desolate moments that transformation begins. Isolation strips away the noise, forcing you to confront the core of your being, your fears, your doubts, your weaknesses, and your hunger for something greater. It becomes a sacred space where God can speak to you, shape you, and prepare you for the purpose he has set before you. Isolation is rarely something we seek willingly. It often comes in the form of unexpected circumstances, loneliness, rejection, a season of waiting, or even physical separation from the world due to illness or other trials. At first, it may feel like a punishment or a burden, leaving you questioning why you've been set apart. But when you shift your perspective, you begin to see that isolation is not a prison, but a sanctuary. It is a place where God does his deepest work. Throughout Scripture, many of God's greatest servants were refined in isolation. From Moses on Mount Sinai to Elijah in the wilderness, from Joseph in the prison to Paul in solitary preparation, isolation was the crucible where their faith was tested and their character forged. The spiritual growth in isolation begins with surrender. When you're stripped of distractions, you're confronted with the reality of your dependence on God. It's easy to rely on the approval of others, the busyness of life, or even your own abilities when everything is going well. But in isolation, those crutches are removed. You're left with the raw truth that apart from God, you can do nothing. This realization is both humbling and liberating. It brings you to a place of surrender where you acknowledge your need for Him and invite Him to take control. In isolation, God often reveals Himself in ways that are deeply personal and intimate. Without the noise of the world, you become more attuned to His voice. His whispers of comfort, correction, and guidance grow clearer. You begin to see His hand in the small details of your life, and you come to understand that His presence is enough. This is where intimacy with God deepens. You learn to rely on Him not as a distant deity, but as a loving Father who cares about every aspect of your life. Isolation becomes a time of communion, where your prayers shift from hurried requests to heartfelt conversations. Spiritual growth in isolation also involves a process of pruning. Just as a gardener prunes a plant to encourage healthy growth, God uses isolation to cut away the things in your life that no longer serve your purpose. This can be a painful process. He may reveal attitudes, habits, or relationships that need to change. He may challenge your reliance on things that are temporary and invite you to invest in what is eternal. Pruning is not about punishment, it's about preparation. It's about removing the excess so that you can bear more fruit. In the quiet of isolation, you begin to see yourself through God's eyes, not with condemnation, but with clarity and hope for who you are becoming. Isolation is also a testing ground for faith. When the usual markers of progress or success are absent, you are forced to trust God in a deeper way. You may not see immediate results or tangible evidence of growth, but faith teaches you to believe in what you cannot see. It's in the unseen work of isolation that God builds resilience, patience, and a steadfast spirit. You learn to trust His timing and His plan, even when it doesn't make sense. You discover that faith is not about avoiding challenges, but about enduring them with the assurance that God is with you. One of the most beautiful aspects of spiritual growth in isolation is the rediscovery of your identity in Christ. In a world that constantly tells you who you should be, isolation gives you the freedom to discover who you truly are. Stripped of external labels and expectations, you can root your identity in the unchanging truth of God's word. You come to understand that your worth is not based on what you do or what others think of you, but on the fact that you are a beloved child of God. This revelation transforms how you see yourself and how you approach the world when you step out of isolation. Isolation can also ignite creativity and vision. When you're removed from the hustle and bustle of daily life, your mind and spirit have the space to dream and imagine. Many of history's greatest innovations, artworks, and spiritual revelations were birthed in seasons of solitude. God often uses isolation to plant seeds of vision in your heart, giving you glimpses of what He has in store for your future. It's a time to listen, to journal, to reflect, and to align your desires with His will. Isolation is not a time of stagnation, it's a time of incubation, where dreams are nurtured and faith is strengthened. While isolation can be deeply transformative, it is not without its challenges. Loneliness, self-doubt, and the temptation to give up can all creep in. But these challenges are also opportunities for growth. Loneliness teaches you to lean into God's presence, discovering that He is the ultimate companion. Self-doubt pushes you to find your confidence in Him rather than in your own abilities. And the temptation to give up becomes a chance to develop perseverance, knowing that the work God has begun in you will be completed in His time. Ultimately, spiritual growth in isolation prepares you for what lies ahead. It is a season of hiddenness that precedes a season of visibility. Just as Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness before beginning His public ministry, isolation is often a time of preparation for the next chapter of your life. It equips you with the spiritual strength, clarity, and resilience you'll need to step into your calling. When the season of isolation ends, you emerge not as the same person you were before, but as someone who has been refined, strengthened, and then deeply connected to God. In the stillness of isolation, God works in ways that cannot always be seen or understood in the moment. But as you look back, you'll see that it was in the quiet, hidden places that some of the most profound growth took place. It is in isolation that God prepares you for greater things, not by changing your circumstances, but by transforming you from the inside out. Sign 5, a fresh vision or dream. A fresh vision or dream is one of the clearest ways God breathes new life into your spirit and aligns your journey with His divine purpose. It is not just a fleeting idea or a whimsical thought. It is a profound sense of direction, a revelation that stirs your heart, and a call that awakens your soul. A fresh vision is often birthed in moments when you least expect it, sometimes when you feel stagnant, stuck, or unsure of your next steps. It comes like a gentle whisper or a sudden burst of clarity, reminding you that God is not finished with you yet and that there is still more for you to do, achieve, and experience. When God imparts a fresh vision or dream, it often challenges the boundaries of your current understanding. It pushes you beyond the limits of what you thought was possible and invites you to step into the unknown with faith. It's rarely a small or comfortable idea. It's something bigger than yourself, something that requires you to rely on God in a deeper way. A fresh vision doesn't simply excite the mind, it stirs the spirit. It carries with it a sense of divine purpose, reminding you that your life is part of a much larger story. It's not about your ambitions or personal goals. It's about fulfilling the unique role God has assigned to you in His kingdom. And receiving a fresh vision often begins with stillness and surrender. It's in the moments when you quiet your heart and tune out the noise of the world that you become most receptive to God's voice. A fresh vision doesn't come from striving or overthinking. It comes from a place of communion with God where you allow Him to imprint His desires onto your heart. Sometimes this vision is an answer to prayer, a response to the longings you've poured out before Him. Other times it comes unexpectedly, surprising you with its clarity and relevance. Either way, it is unmistakably divine, marked by a sense of peace and conviction that cannot be manufactured by human effort. A fresh vision or dream often involves a shift in perspective. It challenges you to see things not as they are, but as they could be. It invites you to look beyond your circumstances and into the realm of God's possibilities. This shift is not just about external circumstances, it's about internal transformation. A fresh vision redefines how you view yourself, your purpose, and your place in the world. It reminds you that you are not defined by your past failures, limitations, or insecurities. Instead, it calls you to rise above those things and embrace the person God has created you to be. Guys, one of the most powerful aspects of a fresh vision is how it reignites your passion and fuels your perseverance. It breathes new energy into areas of your life that may have felt dormant or uninspired. It gives you a reason to press forward, even when the path seems difficult. A fresh vision fills you with a sense of anticipation, as though you are stepping into something sacred and significant. It motivates you to take bold steps of faith, trusting that God will provide the resources, connections, and opportunities you need along the way. However, receiving a fresh vision is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in stewarding that vision and bringing it to fruition. A God-given vision is often accompanied by obstacles, delays, and tests of faith. These challenges are not meant to discourage you. They are meant to refine you. They teach you to rely on God's strength rather than your own and to trust His timing rather than your immediate expectations. A fresh vision is not a quick fix or an instant solution. It is a journey of growth, obedience, and trust. As you pursue the vision, you may find that it requires you to let go of old habits, mindsets, or even relationships that no longer align with where God is taking you. This process can be uncomfortable, but it is necessary. A fresh vision calls for a fresh perspective and a renewed commitment to God's will. It may also require you to learn new skills, step into unfamiliar territory, or take risks that stretch your faith. Each step of the journey is an opportunity to grow, both spiritually and practically, as you align yourself with God's plan. A fresh vision is not just about personal fulfillment, it is about impact. When God gives you a vision, it is never solely for your benefit. It is always connected to a greater purpose, a way for you to serve others and glorify Him. Whether the vision involves your family, career, ministry, or community, it is designed to make a difference in the lives of those around you. A fresh vision reminds you that your life is not just about what you can achieve, but about how you can contribute to God's work in the world. One of the most beautiful aspects of a fresh vision is the way it connects you to God's heart. As you pursue the vision, you begin to see the world through His eyes. You develop a deeper compassion for others, a stronger sense of justice, and a greater desire to see His kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. A fresh vision transforms not only what you do, but also who you are. It draws you closer to God, shaping your character and refining your faith. There will be moments along the journey when the vision feels distant or unattainable. Doubts may creep in, and you may wonder if you heard God correctly. These moments are not signs of failure. They are opportunities to deepen your trust in God. A fresh vision requires perseverance, the willingness to keep moving forward, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's in these moments that you discover the true depth of your faith and the boundless nature of God's grace. Ultimately, a fresh vision or dream is a gift, a sacred invitation to partner with God and His plans. It's a reminder that He has not forgotten you, that He has a purpose for your life, and that He is always at work, even in the moments when you can't see it. A fresh vision rekindles hope, reignites passion, and sets you on a path of discovery and transformation. It's not just about reaching a destination, it's about the journey of becoming the person God has called you to be. Sign 6 unusual challenges that stretch you. Unusual challenges that stretch you are often the most transformative experiences in life. These challenges come in many forms, but they share a common trait. They force you to go beyond what you thought was possible. They push you out of your comfort zone, stretching your capacity for faith, patience, perseverance, and personal growth. At first, these challenges may feel overwhelming or unfair, like obstacles designed to hold you back. But with time, you begin to realize that they are not setbacks, but opportunities for significant spiritual and emotional development. One of the most common types of unusual challenges is the kind that feels completely out of your control. Whether it's a sudden health crisis, an unexpected financial setback, or the loss of a loved one, these challenges seem to come from nowhere, knocking you off balance and forcing you to grapple with a reality that is hard to accept. In the face of such challenges, it's easy to feel helpless and defeated, wondering how you'll ever get through it. But these situations are often the ones that stretch your faith the most. They test your ability to trust God even when the situation appears hopeless, reminding you that faith is not just for the easy times, but for the hardest ones too. These kinds of challenges often reveal the areas in your life where you've placed your security. For example, if you've relied too much on your career, your health, or your financial situation as sources of stability, a sudden change in any of those areas can feel like the foundation beneath you has crumbled. In these moments, God is asking you to shift your focus from external things to Him. When everything else is shaken, He wants to show you that He is the one constant in your life, the unshakable foundation upon which you can build your future. While the challenge itself may seem like a setback, it is actually an invitation to build your life on something far more secure. Another type of unusual challenge that stretches you is one that forces you to confront your weaknesses. We all have areas of our lives that we would prefer to keep hidden, things we'd rather not deal with, things that make us feel vulnerable or unworthy. But these are the very areas where growth happens. When a challenge arises that pushes you to face those fears or weaknesses head on, it feels uncomfortable and even painful. Yet it is in this discomfort that real growth begins. Whether it's overcoming an addiction, learning to forgive, or confronting your own fears, these challenges require you to step into the places you've avoided and to face yourself with honesty and courage. It's a process that requires humility and willingness to be stretched, but the end result is a stronger, more resilient person. Sometimes the challenges that stretch you are those that require you to do something you never thought you could. Maybe it's stepping into a leadership role, taking on a new responsibility, or pursuing a dream that feels too big for you to achieve. These challenges push you to grow in ways you never imagined possible. They stretch your abilities, challenge your confidence, and require you to learn new skills and take risks. In these moments, you may feel overwhelmed by self-doubt or fear of failure, but it isn't pushing through that fear and taking action anyway that you discover your true potential. Every step forward, no matter how small, builds your confidence and strengthens your belief in your own abilities. And as you look back on the journey, you realize that you are capable of far more than you ever imagined. In the midst of these challenges, it's easy to become discouraged and to question your ability to keep going. There may be times when you feel like you are failing, that the weight of the challenge is too much to bear. But these moments are often the ones where the greatest breakthroughs happen. When you reach the point of exhaustion or frustration, when you feel like giving up is the only option, that's when God's strength becomes most evident. The Apostle Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 12:9, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. It is in these times of weakness, when you have nothing left to give, that God steps in and carries you through. These are the moments when His grace becomes real in ways that nothing else can match. Unusual challenges also stretch you by revealing the importance of community. When you face a difficult situation, it's easy to isolate yourself, believing that no one else can understand or help you. But often it is in the support of others that we find the strength to persevere. These challenges push you to lean on those around you, to accept help, and to allow others to walk alongside you. The community you build during these times becomes a vital source of encouragement, support, and accountability. It reminds you that you don't have to face life's difficulties alone and that there is strength in numbers. Sometimes God allows challenges to come not just to stretch you personally, but to stretch your relationships with others. He uses these moments to teach you the value of vulnerability, humility, and interdependence. There are also challenges that stretch you by changing the direction of your life. These challenges often come in the form of unexpected opportunities or detours, things that force you to change course, let go of plans, and embrace something new. Whether it's a career change, moving to a new place, or starting a new venture, these challenges require you to step into the unknown. They force you to trust in God's guidance and provision even when you don't have all the answers. These detours may seem inconvenient or frustrating at first, but often they lead to the very things you need to grow and develop in your purpose. God often uses these challenges to take you places you never expected to go and to help you become someone you never thought you could be. Unusual challenges that stretch you may also serve to refine your character. When everything is going well, it's easy to believe that we are growing in our faith, but it is often in the face of difficulty that the true depth of our character is revealed. How you respond to adversity shows the condition of your heart. Will you trust God in the midst of trials? Will you maintain integrity when no one is watching? Will you continue to love and serve others when you feel like you have nothing left to give? These questions come to the surface when you face unusual challenges, and your responses shape who you become. Through every challenge, God is refining you, purging the impurities in your heart, and shaping you into the person He has called you to be. Finally, unusual challenges stretch you by teaching you the value of persistence and endurance. In life, things don't always come easily, and success is rarely instantaneous, but it is in the ongoing, persistent effort that true growth happens. These challenges teach you to keep going even when the path is unclear, even when the end goal seems far away, and even when the obstacles feel insurmountable. With every challenge you face, you grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And when you finally overcome the challenge, you realize that the strength and character you've gained along the way were worth every struggle. Unusual challenges are often the means by which God stretches you, refines you, and brings you closer to your true purpose. While they may not be easy or comfortable, they are an essential part of the journey that shapes you into the person God has called you to be. Sign 7, an unshakable peace. An unshakable peace is not a fleeting emotion or a fragile state of mind that crumbles under pressure. It is a deep, abiding sense of calm that anchors your soul, even in the midst of chaos, uncertainty, and storms. This peace cannot be manufactured by human effort or found in temporary comforts. It is a divine gift that transcends understanding and circumstances. It is the kind of peace that only God can provide, rooted in His presence, His promises, and His power. An unshakable peace is not the absence of conflict or difficulty, but the presence of God within you, steadying your heart and mind when the world around you is anything but steady. This peace often begins with surrender. When you relinquish control over your life and place your trust in God, you open the door for His peace to take root in your heart. Surrender is not a passive act. It is a deliberate choice to release your anxieties, fears, and uncertainties into the hands of the one who holds all things together. It is an acknowledgement that you cannot do it all on your own, and it is an invitation for God to work in ways that go beyond your understanding. Surrendering to God doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you stop striving in your own strength and begin to rely on His. An unshakable peace flows from the knowledge of who God is. When you truly understand His nature, His goodness, faithfulness, sovereignty, and love, you find a confidence that no external circumstance can undermine. This knowledge isn't just intellectual, it is experiential. It comes from walking with God, seeing His hand at work in your life, and learning to trust His character even when you don't understand His methods. It is the assurance that He is in control, that His plans for you are good, and that nothing can separate you from His love. This peace also comes from understanding your identity in Christ. When you know that you are a beloved child of God, chosen, forgiven, and secure in Him, you are no longer tossed about by the opinions of others, the ups and downs of life, or the fear of the future. And your worth is not based on your performance, your possessions, or your position in life, but on the unchanging truth of who you are in Christ. This identity provides a foundation for peace that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. It reminds you that no matter what happens, you are held in the hands of a loving Father who will never leave you or forsake you. An unshakable peace often emerges in the midst of trials. Paradoxically, it is in the hardest seasons of life that this peace becomes most evident. But when you face challenges that seem insurmountable, when you are surrounded by uncertainty, or when you walk through the valley of grief and loss, you discover that God's peace is not dependent on the absence of problems, but on His presence in the midst of them. This peace doesn't always remove the storm, but it sustains you through it. It gives you the strength to endure, the clarity to make wise decisions, and the assurance that you are not alone. This peace guards your heart and mind. In a world filled with distractions, noise, and negativity, it is easy to become overwhelmed by anxiety, fear, or doubt. But the peace of God acts as a shield, protecting your inner world from the chaos of the outer world. It enables you to stay focused on what truly matters, to resist the pull of worry, and to keep your heart aligned with God's purposes. This guarding of your heart and mind is not something you achieve on your own. It is the work of the Holy Spirit within you, guiding you, comforting you, and reminding you of the truth. An unshakable peace is closely tied to gratitude. When you cultivate a heart of thankfulness, you begin to see the blessings and goodness of God, even in difficult circumstances. Gratitude shifts your perspective from what is lacking to what is present, from what is uncertain to what is steadfast. It reminds you of God's faithfulness in the past, his provision in the present, and his promises for the future. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to anxiety because it reorients your focus from the problem to the provider. It reminds you that God has been faithful before and that he will be faithful again. This peace also grows through prayer. Prayer is not just about presenting your request to God, it is about communion with him. It is a time to pour out your heart, to listen to his voice, and to align your will with his. In prayer, you exchange your burdens for his peace. You may not always receive immediate answers, but you receive something even more valuable, the assurance that God hears you, that he is working on your behalf, and that his grace is sufficient for whatever you are facing. Prayer is where your soul finds rest, not because the circumstances change, but because you are reminded that God is in control. An unshakable peace transforms the way you respond to life. It allows you to approach challenges with confidence, to navigate uncertainty with grace, and to face opposition with courage. This peace is not passive, it is active. It equips you to stand firm in the face of adversity, to remain calm in the midst of conflict, and to be a source of light and encouragement to those around you. It is a testimony to the power of God at work in your life, a reflection of his presence that others can see and be drawn to. This peace does not come and go based on how you feel or what you face. It is a constant, steady presence that anchors you through all seasons of life. It is not something you achieve by trying harder. It is something you receive by drawing closer to God. It is a gift, a fruit of the Spirit, and a sign of his work in your life. An unshakable peace is not the absence of storms, but the calm that comes from knowing the one who calms the storms. It is the assurance that no matter what you face, you are never alone and that God's promises are true.